What's going on, everybody? Hopefully you're having a good weekend. Bitcoin's been having an okay weekend, mostly holding on to its gains, still hovering around 100,000. We're going to look at Bitcoin's chart in a second. We also have some interesting news and definitely a theme to keep an eye on, especially in terms of small caps doing this. And then after we look at that, we're going to look at kind of who the top holders are of Bitcoin, where Coinbase is at, where Binance is at. Are we going to see a supply shock? What are the numbers like right now? We do have some news the other day, and it did cause the stock to rally a bit. We'll look at that, and it is a theme to keep an eye on. But this small cap company is planning on buying XRP and Bitcoin, and this is a company that I haven't heard of. You probably have never heard of it either. This is Worksport, WKSP, and this is a publicly traded company. They manufacture tonneau covers, which are like truck covers and stuff like that, so I wouldn't be surprised if you don't know of them. But they did decide to make this move to add crypto to their treasury, and this company Worksport, they're going to be able to buy up to $5 million worth of XRP and or Bitcoin. The devil's in the details. It'll be funding its purchases with a portion of excess operational cash, that's great, and future capital to be raised. Regardless of that, the stock did get a pump. But this isn't it here. They are also going to be accepting, cryptocurrency payments on their website. And our new Bitcoin buddy here, Stephen Rossi, the CEO of Worksport, says this about Bitcoin and XRP. They're increasingly reliable stores of value due to their inflation-resistant properties. Okay, I guess. Sure. Now looking at Worksport, WKSP, this was up 27% in the last 5 days. Look at that market cap. That's going to be a huge differentiator, in my opinion, for the companies that announce something like this. If it's a very small market cap, we're going to see a very quick short-term pump because that market cap is so low, because it takes such a small amount of money to move the stock massively. If we have news that Microsoft is actually going to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet, I don't think we would see a 27% move in 5 days, but who knows? I could be wrong. Make no mistake, Microsoft doing something like that versus a company like this doing something like that, obviously Microsoft doing it is a bigger deal and would cause much more waves, obviously. But I just mean from a market cap perspective, when we hear about companies doing something like this, keep an eye on them. These could be potential great trades. And I think we will see a lot more of this in 2025. Now, I'll leave this down below for you guys as well. This is really interesting. Kind of shows the top Bitcoin players in the space. Who holds the most Bitcoin? Now, keep in mind that Bitcoin's supply is set at 21 million, and 98% or so of the overall supply is already out there. It's already in circulation. It is already among us. The Bitcoin miners are fighting for the last roughly 2% of Bitcoin over about 100 years or more. With that being said, let's look at what these companies hold. So Coinbase, the largest holder. Coinbase, they are currently holding 1,123,000 Bitcoin, or about $112 billion worth of Bitcoin. Binance, the next largest exchange, holds about 686,000 Bitcoin, worth about $68 billion. Just to keep things simple, let's say they hold altogether about 1.8 million Bitcoin, or about $180 billion, give or take. Now, I would look at those two as kind of the supply, right? The supply that we have to eat up. Whereas you have something like BlackRock, an ETF, they are buying up the supply. They are buying up the supply with intentions, for the most part, of holding for the long term. Most of the buyers of these funds are probably going to hold for a longer term. So I guess here's the disclaimer. Of course, we could see some selling. We could see some people decide to sell. But in general, we will see these spot Bitcoin ETFs add inflows. We will see more and more inflows from these spot Bitcoin ETFs. And if we see in 2025 what we saw in 2024 from the spot Bitcoin ETFs, by the end of 2025, it is a huge possibility that Coinbase and Binance together will hold well under 1 million of the Bitcoin. This is ignoring retail investors that buy. This is ignoring any other institutionals that get in. This is ignoring MicroStrategy, who plans to buy a ton of Bitcoin as well. And this is ignoring the US government. Who knows what happens there in 2025. Maybe we see massive buying from the US government. Also, there was recent news that I showed you in my last video about Arkham Intelligence finding a wallet that was linked to UK that has multiple billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. We might be reaching a little bit saying that the US or these other countries are going to accumulate a lot of Bitcoin, but it is what we have been seeing. Whether we do or don't see that, I think there will be somewhat of a supply shock in 2025. Think about this. We just had news the other day that the spot Bitcoin ETFs collectively hold more Bitcoin than Satoshi Nakamoto. They hold more than 1 million Bitcoin in less than a year of going live. This was the first year. A lot of fund managers can't even trade Bitcoin yet, can't even get to these spot Bitcoin ETFs yet. Some wirehouses are forbidden from allowing this trading. When a lot of the big money sees how Bitcoin did for the players that got into Bitcoin in 2024, they are going to want in. I think 2025 we might even see more inflows than the first year, than 2024. I might be naive in thinking that, but I think that is a real possibility. As the FOMO builds, as the excitement builds, as we hear crazy news, maybe Microsoft is going to buy Bitcoin. It's up to the shareholder vote. Maybe we hear news of Tesla getting into Bitcoin. It would not surprise me. They did so last cycle. But that is one thing that's so attractive about Bitcoin, in my opinion. The set supply. You know, when people compare it to Tulip Mania, they're missing one crucial detail. What is that detail? You can grow as many tulips as you want. If you have 1,000,000-acre property, you can grow as many tulips as humanly possible. No matter how many Bitcoin mining rigs you get, no matter how deeply involved in Bitcoin mining you get, the difficulty will adjust. And that's one thing that's so amazing about it. When Bitcoin goes up in price, a lot of Bitcoin miners want to get in, but that creates more competition. That doesn't necessarily mean more Bitcoin mined. So we have a dynamic difficulty system. We have a set supply at 21 million Bitcoin, of which the majority is already out there, and I just don't see how Bitcoin can fail. I don't see how Bitcoin won't go up cycle to cycle to cycle. Sure, there will be crypto winters. Sure, there will be pullbacks. But if you believe in Bitcoin like I do, you'll be pushing that buy button just like me. And I'm not the only one that believes there will be a Bitcoin supply shortage. Fundstrat's Tom Lee believes that as well. And while Tom Lee's price prediction for Bitcoin is a little bullish, a little more bullish than mine, his is 250. I think 150 is more than reasonable. I like to go with a very reasonable price target. I'd rather be right and conservative than to be wrong and a little too optimistic, if that makes sense. I think 250 is definitely possible, especially seeing where we have come from and seeing how far we have gone so far. But I still think 150K is a doable target, is a reachable target. Maybe we go farther, but I think 150K we will see at some point in 2025. Maybe we end the year strong towards 120 and get a good pullback back towards 100 or under, and then work our way throughout 2025 to that 150 and above maybe. Maybe we rally towards 150, seemingly with no end in sight, and just keep going over the next couple months, and then we'll have a major pullback maybe after a couple of months of 2025. But I do think there will be a pullback along the way. We're not just going to keep going up and up and up. We might get close to 150, it becomes a psychological resistance, and we pull back towards 100. There are going to be major corrections in 2025. But anyways, I am rambling on way too much. This is going to be fun to edit. But Tom Lee says that the dwindling supply of Bitcoin for sale will likely be felt once Bitcoin shatters the psychological price point of 100K. That has already happened. And he says that I think this could be, well, there's a lot of folks that don't want Bitcoin over 100K, and some of it may be the exchanges. They're concerned. There's a low supply of Bitcoin available over the counter. And that psychological 100K, that could bring in more buying pressure. When you think about it from a price perspective, you can't buy as much Bitcoin for 100K as you can for, 50,000. So that kind of doesn't make sense in a way for the exchanges, because the higher in price means the less Bitcoin that someone can buy with their buying power, right? But I understand what he means when you think about the $100,000 psychological level and the potential FOMO that can ensue. We have already cracked 100K. That is not a barrier over our heads any longer. And even right now, we're hovering right around it. The market wants Bitcoin over 100K, and I do think we're going to end this year over 100K. Let me know what you guys think, though. If we ended the year right this second, I would be wrong. Right now, Bitcoin is at 99,849. And I do think we're kind of setting up this pattern. We may get a reaction. And funny enough, this pattern kind of ends right around Monday, maybe Tuesday. Maybe I need to adjust it a little better, but we are getting this descending resistance. We have hit a couple times, and we're getting this interesting kind of a support level. We have broken down from it, wicked down, but we have not had a full candle, a full body close out of it. So I do think we will see some sort of reaction on this pattern. Could be on Monday. Maybe we get a little bit of a boredom, kind of a boring rest of the weekend, and then we get a good breakout either to the upside or possibly to the downside. Remember, next week we do have PPI. We do have CPI. There might be a little volatility in the market. One thing that's interesting is the Fed Watch tool. We're basically completely expecting a rate cut. It's like an 89% chance of a rate cut. If we have a really bad PPI or CPI, maybe this changes, but I think we are going to get a rate cut in the following week. December 18 is the Fed meeting, and this should help small caps. This should help risk on assets. Now, if PPI or CPI come in way hot, come in far from expectations, we might see some fear from Bitcoin as the expected probabilities of a rate cut change, some fear in risk on assets. But I do think we're going to get a rate cut, and everything is lining up perfectly. We're at the perfect time in the cycle. We're at the perfect time in terms of M2 global supply. We're at the perfect time in terms of a Fed cutting cycle rather than a Fed hiking cycle. And I do think Bitcoin is set to melt faces in 2025. What do you guys think? Do you think somehow 2024 will be the year that we top out for the first time in any cycle in history? Or do you think we are in fact going higher in 2025? Or 2026? Is that going to be the top for some reason? Let me know what you guys think down below. Are you going to consider getting into this tonneau cover company? I do think, like I said, that is a theme to watch, and we will see more of it. We will see these small cap, risky, unprofitable companies announcing a Bitcoin strategy because they see what happens to their stock shortly after, and that is a theme to keep an eye on. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Hopefully you're continuing to have a good weekend, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow, if not Monday.